Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host, Marguerite Crespillo, started this podcast simply dedicated to call people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crespillo.
Hello, everybody. It is Marguerite Crespillo, and it is that time for another fabulous episode of Real Estate Real World. And we're super excited today to have an extraordinary human being. You know, what I love the most about some people is you meet them and you might not know anything about them, their background, nothing. You don't know anything about who they are. But when you get around them and you spend any time with them, they just have the most amazing energy. And they're people that you just always feel great around, and they always make you smile. And I have a couple funny stories that I'll share while we're actually have her on board. But today I want to welcome Sheryl. Sheryl Houck is here today to join us. And let me take a brief minute to give you information on her bio. So Sheryl is a distinguished real estate professional in Florida, having achieved the status of being the state's first three-time icon agent, which I think we'll dig into a little bit in our conversation. A property appraiser and a real estate investment strategist with over 21 years of unique experience and a dedication to providing exceptional value to her clients. Sheryl's passion for real estate is fueled by her love for technology and her extensive network of agents and investors across the country. Originally hailing from Hershey, Pennsylvania, Sheryl now resides in the Tampa Bay area. She's a magna cum laude graduate from the University of Tampa and balances her career with being a single mama to a teenage son, as well as pursuing her interests in travel and fitness. So thank you, and welcome, Sheryl.
Thank you, Marguerite, for that wonderful introduction. It's great being here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day out today, and I actually got to spend a little bit of time with my grandbaby this morning before our call. So that's what I love about this real estate world is our flexibility.
Excellent.
So you're not there yet. You got a few years for grandkids. There's a funny saying that says if we knew about grandkids, we'd have them first before we went.
You bet. You bet. This is what I understand.
The
Mine are
best.
17. 17, yeah.
Yeah. Mine are all grown now. My youngest is 26, going to be 27. And then my son, Jake, who has our grandbaby, is 28. So
What a gift.
Yeah.
Have them nearby,
Yeah.
too. What a gift.
yeah, it's such a blessing. His name is Jaden, and he is just the chubbiest, cutest little thing ever. Of course, I'm biased, but he's adorable. Yeah. So I was laughing when I was saying stories because my funniest story with you and about you is when we were at EXP Con, last year or the year before, I think it was a couple years ago. And they have, now I can't think of the name of it. What is it called? X Camp. So X Camp, and I had gotten chosen to speak at X Camp, which I did not know. So I was down like la gagging around, and I'm down the hall, and all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be on stage right now?" And I was like, "What?"
Let's go.
And we literally ran, and we're talking, this whole hotel is huge. I want to say we ran a mile. It was probably like a quarter mile, but it felt like a mile. We're running all the way to the other end of the hotel, and I go flying in this room, and there's 200 and some odd people in this room, and I'm like,
Fire guy here.
oh yeah, it ended up being a great talk, but I just was cracking up because I was like, so it stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, what?
Yes, we were in the Icon Hospitality Suite. I bumped into you.
Yeah, that's right. We were. So that actually, why don't we talk about that for a moment? So 3-time icon now. Is it 4 now? You got to be close to,
Three.
are you at 4 yet? 3.
That's right. Yeah.
And one of the beauties about being with EXP Realty, which we both are, is the icon program. Do you want to tell about it a little bit?
Yeah, it's really a program that has absolutely changed my world. We know that in the traditional real estate world, we have our splits, whatever they may be. And here at EXP Realty, if we accomplish a certain level of production, we can earn the Icon Award. And it really is not out of reach. There are hundreds and hundreds of icons in our company, but essentially you're getting your cap back in shares of the company for production. And it's got a 3-year vest, and thankful because when I came in, the shares were really low, and fast forward 3 years, and it was such a gift. And I feel the same now. We have some naysayers out there saying you got in early, but relatively speaking, if you know what we know about what our leadership is doing with our national platform, our stocks are still very low with so much room for growth. So yeah, where we get rewarded for hard work, essentially doing the heavy
Yeah.
lifting.
Yeah, I've made Icon 4 times now, so I have it 4 here in California. And that first year that I made Icon was in 2017, and I
Wonderful.
got like 5,200 shares of stock or something. It was
Yep.
crazy.
Yep, me too. That 2017 was my first. And essentially, we see our leadership, Glenn Sanford, he's just committed wholeheartedly to solving some problems that we as real estate agents have in our industry. And we typically didn't have retirement savings. We didn't have healthcare. So it is just such a blessing that we get that here in our company.
For sure, it changed my life. We were able to that stock allowed us to completely remodel our home, which I had dreamed about for 28 years. It allowed us to buy an investment property in San Diego for our son going living down there, and so many other things. I have a long laundry list of things that helped us do. And I didn't even really care two squats about this stock. When I joined EXP, I was like, oh, okay, whatever, because I don't know anything about stock. It goes up, it goes down, right? But that was all stock I earned for just doing what I was already doing at EXP, which was selling houses.
Yeah,
And
a gift.
this whole conversation wasn't intended to be about EXP, but I think that it's been, for both of us who've been here for a while, life changing for sure. It's been such a blessing in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
Doing what we're already doing, not even doing anything different.
It enabled me to put my child in private school. And as a single mom, that was something that I could never dream of. So
Oh, wow.
certainly a blessing. And you know what, Marguerite? We talk about the Icon Award. That's the big production award. But I have heard stories about agents using their capping award. Right now, we get $400 in stock each year that we cap. And it's 2.7 million, $3 million production here in my market. And I've heard agents making down payments on investment properties just because of that small pod, relatively small
Yeah.
pod. Really game changing, life changing.
I'll tell one last story about this and then we'll move on. So there was an agent in my organization who has been a longtime friend of mine. We're talking 25 years. And then she joined EXP when we did. And her husband had passed away. She'd been married 30 years. Her husband had passed away. And sadly, when he passed away, there was really nothing available for her. And she called me one day and she goes, hey, can you just look in and tell me? I don't even know where my stock is, how to find it, how much I have. I'm like, yeah, let's go do it. So we hopped on and went into her portal, and she had over $50,000 worth of stock and didn't even know she had any. She literally started crying. She goes, I don't even know what to do. Like, she didn't even know. It was just from her first closing of the year, her capping year. That was it. And she didn't even know she had that stock.
On with stories like that. Just
Absolutely.
EXP Life, EXPRealtyLife.com. It's just chock full of stories like that. Life changing.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about other stuff, important stuff. I'd love to know a little bit about your background because, like I said, I just met you through EXP and just instantly fell in love with you. And every time I get around you, you're just like, you have just such amazing energy and always just smiling and full of life. And so I intentionally did not dig in and research you before this call because I really wanted to hear a little bit about your story and your background, and then we can talk some about investment stuff too.
Marguerite, they say attracts like, and yeah, there's no coincidence that we have this connection. And you know, I said, I'm just a small town girl from outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania, very rural. We had an Amish farm to the right. We had a Mennonite farm to the left. It was extremely myopic. It was incredibly boring. And I had this inquisitive mind, and I was always pushing. And I had a little mini bike when I was younger, and I would just was pushing the limits. And my father got rid of that bike because he thought I was a daredevil. I was going to hurt myself, but I was always looking for something. And my parents both come from really big farming families. My father's the youngest of 18 children. He just celebrated his 80th birthday last week, and I got to share that special day with him. My mom's the oldest of 7, and they were bred for farm help and just really hardworking, generous, a little bit naive. It's an area where people don't move in and don't move out. But there was one aunt that had married a sharp dressing, great dude from New York City. And I just watched them build a business together. I watched her develop some sophistication in her tastes. And I just thought this was the coolest thing. And she had 2 boys and, of course, a bevy of nieces and nephews. But she saw something in me and she took me in. I spent some summers with her. She took me to church with her because my parents were very hardworking. They were always there on the farm. And she just inspired me and changed my world, essentially. I was there for 25 years. I moved to Tampa in 1995. So I spent as much time here in Tampa as I did outside of Hershey, PA. And I made Tampa my home. I got here. I realized just how unprepared for the world I was. I got myself into school, financed it myself, University of Tampa, graduate magna cum laude. When you're paying for it yourself, you take it seriously, right?
Yeah.
And I've got to admit, some of the debt that I incurred throughout my college years was because I was fascinated by the world. I wanted to travel. So I got some opportunities with the University of Tampa Honors Program to go to Greece, to go to Costa Rica.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I just realized that it was a big world. So I have this extreme appreciation for the big world because we just grew up in a very simple, myopic world. So I'm overly excited about some things, and that's why, Marguerite.
It's funny because my youngest son recently called me and he's, Mom, I want to take off for a year and go travel. And I was like, and I said, okay. My mama heart was a little nervous,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, I've always known it about this child that he's very fiercely independent, and I don't know where he gets that from. And he's very strong-willed and very creative and artistic. And I've always known that he needed to go see the world. And so I'm actually really excited for him. We're putting plans in place this summer for him to take off, and he's worked hard to set money aside and be able to take off and see the world. So I'm scared, but also, and there was this guy, I used to send him this Instagram post all the time. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was traveling the world and he had this sign that says, Mom, I'm fine. And so everywhere he would go, he would take these pictures and post them on Instagram that said, Mom, I'm fine.
I
told my son, I go, you need to go do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an entire education in itself, traveling the world. So good. I highly recommend.
Where is your favorite place? Where's your favorite place in the world?
Oh gosh, my favorite place in the world probably was the south of France. There's a little village called Eze, E-Z-E, and the hotels are built into the side of the mountain overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. It is just gorgeous, and fortified villages everywhere. Yeah, the south of France is probably one of my favorite places in the world.
Mine so far would be Portofino in Italy.
Italy, yeah. Sorrento and
by Lake Como. Yeah. We went there looking for George Clooney, but we didn't find him. But me and some girlfriends, we went into Portofino and we had the most amazing day. And it was funny because while we were there was this huge yacht coming into the port. And it was actually the Prince of Spain. Wow. And it took them like 2 or 3 hours to bring this humongous yacht in, lay out the red carpet and the whole bit. But yeah, Portofino. I'm wanting to go back to Italy. I turned 60 in November, and that's my goal, is to go back to Italy for a couple of weeks. So I'm trying to make that happen.
Marguerite, that's amazing. You look amazing. Vintage.
Oh, thank you.
Vintage.
Vintage. I know, it's funny because don't you I remember when my mom was like 45 and I thought, she's so old. I don't ever want to get that old. And now I look and I'm like, Oh my goodness. Like, I can't believe, I think the 60 now looks a little different than the 60 did. Maybe
It's a
30 years
lot
ago.
different. Yes, I recall.
Yeah.
40 was old.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit. So you've focused a lot of your energy in the real estate world towards investors. Is that correct? Bless you.
I sure do.
And tell us a little bit, like, how did you get into that world and what does that look like now? It seems like the landscape for investors has obviously changed a lot. I've been in real estate 30 years. You've been 21 or 22.
Yeah.
And it feels like that landscape has changed a lot. So tell us, how did you get into that world? What does it look like?
22 years ago, I was a social worker first and foremost, and I had a life event happen. And I had a colleague, an acquaintance that was a property appraiser, a residential property appraiser. And the social worker salary was just measly. And as a result of that, and needing to make more money, I had apprentice under him for 2 years to learn the trade of property appraisal. And my first couple of years in real estate, my first 3 years, I really focused on that portion of the business. So getting skilled at valuations, I believe that is why I landed in attracting a lot of the investors. And it really, I did a onesie, twosies, servicing families, servicing smaller investors until statistically the bottom of our market here in Tampa was January of 2012. And what pushed us up at that particular time was the large REITs funds, the large funds that were buying volume. So just glory to God, my LinkedIn profile had property appraiser, had salesperson, and I attracted two of the larger investors that approached me and asking me, do you think that you could get us 30 to 40 transactions a month? And I was pretty much down on my luck as a single mom. And I went through that downturn, 2008, 2009, 2010. Wasn't easy. I didn't have family around. I was 100% financially responsible for my boy. And it was just such a gift. And so from 2012 to 2018, Marguerite, I was making hay. I'd focused on that line of business. And what was interesting is that when I pivoted off of that, they had some restructuring and I took a position with Express Offers here at EXP, our marketplace of investor partners. And I was tasked with building out the platform with the large regional investors. So I did that for a little while. And then in 2020, they came to me and said, okay, you've got this national platform. I know you did what you did for us in Tampa, in Florida. Can you do that in 25 different markets? We want 1,000 properties a month in 25 different markets. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew the power of our national platform, that it was possible. So without hesitation, I said, yes, I could do it. And essentially that was how I was able to get my last icon. And get this, Marguerite, was off of referral fees. I was able to icon off of referral fees. Yeah, it's been an incredible experience. And we know that the landscape of investors, maybe some of them are a little bit conservative right now, a little overly cautious, waiting for the feds to get the inflation under control. But I don't know if you had seen this, but a couple of months back, MetLife Investments put out this article, and it said that by the year 2030, that 40% of all single family residential assets would be owned by large investor corporations. And I don't know about you, that's concerning.
Very concerning.
We think about a renter's nation, and with our EXPI, we talked about the investments, our shares. Like I did cash out some to buy other investments. We all need to get our real estate. We all need to be helping our clients get more real estate because it's going to get harder and harder.
Yeah, it is concerning because, like, for our children, right? I think about the blessing is with my EXP stock a couple of years ago, I was able to work with my son and buy something in San Diego, which there is no way he could have done that on his own, right? At this point, he was 24 years old at the time. Do that on his own. And that asset has obviously appreciated considerably since buying it in early 2021. But I think about we have our other children and we're in the process of helping them find and buy something, but I'm not convinced right now with the current world that they could afford to buy something without financial help from us. And
Yes.
that's concerning.
It's very concerning, and to not have control over your monthly rental price, to be at the mercy of that is really concerning. Yeah, and we real estate agents, we're out there, we're scouting the deals. In fact, with the landscape now, we know that we've got some struggling homeowners. We've got people that are falling behind on their mortgages. The difference this time is that they have equity. So we are really proactive. My team, we're really proactive about getting out there and helping those homeowners. The human condition is we plug our head in the sand when we're experiencing financial hardship, but now is not the time to do that. Get your equity, tap out your equity so you can rebuild your life. But we've got inventory that we can, and I know that the government is releasing more and more programs for down payment assistance and to help people. And it's just not first time, not only first time home buyers, but there's assistance all across the board to get people into home ownership.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as I mentioned, I've been in real estate going on 30 years this year. And 2006 is when our market started to shift long before you guys saw it in Tampa. And the bottom for us was 2010. I was blessed but through relationships and connections to get into the REO world
Yes.
and sold a ton of REOs. In fact, Kelvin Zelaya, who runs our Revenues program or helps in the REO division of the Revenues program, he was my asset manager at Fannie Mae.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm the one who helped bring him into EXP, and he's an extraordinary human being. But during that time, we were dealing with the REOs, and it was heartbreaking in so many situations because of people, like you said, burying their head in the sand. It was really difficult to go through that side of it. And I just pray every day. I try to educate the public as well about, hey, don't let this house go, right? You have equity, you have money in it. Take it out and put it somewhere else until you can get your life back on track. What are you I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on this because I do not encourage people to put a lot of money down on their house or into their home at the moment, right? Like I've had people say, I just want to pay off my house or I want to put 30 or 40 or 50% down. And I get concerned when I hear people putting so much money into their home because if God forbid the market does shift again, they're going to lose all of their money. The banks aren't losing theirs, right? Like the banks are going to come in and foreclose on that property in lickety split. They're not even going to think twice about it. And that homeowner is not going to get their equity back. Like you said earlier, when a lot of people have equity in their home and they're burying their head in the sand, if they truly, the banks are motivated to foreclose because there's equity in that home. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I hear the sentiment is a little bit different because it costs so much. It can cost anywhere between $10,000. I heard up to $80,000 for, depending on the state, if it's a judicial or a non-judicial state, to go through the entire foreclosure process. So I'm not sure that the banks, that would be a true statement in all cases, that the banks want to foreclose on that. And of course, yes, if there's 50% equity, it makes sense, right? Here in Florida, there is something I came across just a couple of months ago is that there's a process that a homeowner can go back and after the fact and they can make a claim to that equity after the
Oh, wow.
fact. Yeah. So I'd imagine that it's going to take a retro appraisal and a process to get that done. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, though. And so long as the banks are offering it 3% down conventional finance, roll money down, because take that other cash and buy a rental property that may not cash flow a whole lot, but you can certainly find some properties that you'll break even and it's a safe haven. It's a safe haven for your money, right?
So that's an interesting way to look at it too. And I know I've talked about this, but this is great information for those listening out there. So if you had $100,000 in cash, for example, and you could either do one of two things. You could put it all down on one home, right? Or you could take that 100,000 and put 25,000 down potentially on four homes, a primary residence and maybe three investment properties. And if you're smart about it and you really learn and do the math and do your numbers. Our good friend Hank talks about the math all the time, and is you could potentially own multiple properties and it could make a lot more financial sense than putting that all into one home.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And you can even build in enough to have property management. You just got to find where the numbers work. Again, I just am passionate about all of us getting our real estate in as much real estate as we can get, because I think the future generation is going to be challenged to get their hands on real estate. So we need to do it for
Isn't
them.
it interesting how few actual agents own real estate? They don't funny story. When we bought that house with our son, I had to go through the mortgage process, and I haven't had to go through it in quite a while. And I was going through the whole mortgage process. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really what our clients have to go through? Because we had good credit scores. We had 30% down. It was like, oh my goodness. It was like torture. And I have a great lender. It wasn't my lender's issue. It just was the process. And I was like, wow. So I feel like every real estate agent should have to buy or sell property like every couple few years, just so they can appreciate what our clients go through.
I agree. That's a good point. And I've done some hard money. And also, I think that something that is undertapped, underutilized is we have hardworking citizens in our country that have built up this large 401k that's at risk with a volatile stock market, right? So I shifted my 401k over into a self-directed solo K. If I'm doing this, I did this for years for corporations and making them great financial decisions and real estate investments. So I thought, heck, I'm going to do this for myself.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that, and I think that we need to be, that needs to be top of mind when we speak with our clients, because again, we need to get the real estate for them.
So let me ask you this. How did you actually learn some of this? Like, what would be good resources if people wanted to learn more about that, either agents or consumers, if they wanted to learn more about how to get their first investment property or get into the investment side? Because the thing that always makes me nervous is all those like late night infomercials, right? Where they're selling $20,000, $30,000 programs on how to buy property, how to buy a property in Michigan for $1, right? You're like, that's not real. That's not legitimate. Like, where are some good resources for people to go and learn that?
Yeah, and I think that you said it best, that not enough real estate agents do that, do acquire investment properties for themselves. And I think it's an education issue. And a number of ways, I belong to the local RIA, the real estate investment clubs there throughout the United States. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of reading. If you're an EXP, join the Express Offers community. There's a certification that you can get to learn how investors think. You can look at the buy boxes. You can see what investors are salivating over, and that changes. They can go in and update their buy box. Right now, a big thing is land. You can get your hands on land. Do it, because build for rent is a huge segment business right now, in that instead of the vertical communities that we've always known as apartment complexes, they've got one parcel ID number. We've got entire subdivisions of single family housing right now under one parcel ID number for build to rent. So yeah, I read a lot. I attend the IMN conferences where the investors congregate twice a year. Kathy Fetke, she is on the West Coast. She is an amazing podcast. And what I love about her is she talks about all the macroeconomic factors that influence how an investor might think and how an investor might accelerate their acquisitions goals, or they might pull back. She's amazing. Kathy Fetke, it's Fetke. And
Awesome.
yeah, I've been following her for years, but just immerse yourself. There's bigger pockets on YouTube. We have access to so much free education right now. There's really no excuse for us not to be learning that, in my opinion.
It's funny that you say that, because this morning I was talking to somebody and we were talking about training and education. And I was like, you know what? We didn't have YouTube.
What did you do?
When I got into real estate, like we had to read good old fashioned books, right? Or we had to try to attend things live and in person. So now you have literally at your fingertips Mounds and mounds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of hours of education and training to follow that could teach you something in no time.
Yeah, it's almost overwhelming because there's so much available, and the riches are in the niches. I think that's the biggest mistake that we real estate agents make, and rightfully so, because there's so many things we're responsible for: bookkeeping and marketing and buyers and sellers and expireds and FISBOs. Niche down and get yourself fantastic. Immerse yourself in anything and everything that you can learn about that. Because what's really exciting is I see a trend: pipeline, platform over pipeline. Real estate has traditionally been a pipeline business, right? And with this national platform, we can do some amazing things. So those of us that have been in the business for some time, we apply our gifts on this national platform when we create opportunities for other agents and collapse time for them, accelerate their learning curve, that we can give them opportunities.
That actually is a great comment. And as we wrap up today, I would love to hear what is next for you. What are you working on, or what direction are you trying to go with your business?
Yeah, it's a good question. Right now, I am doubling down, diving deep, and training up agents on how to go after the foreclosures, the Liz pendants. And what was different when I betaed that last opportunity that I was describing, where they came and they wanted a ridiculous amount of properties. Of course, I had to get with the system again, see the flow, and build my system around it. I honed in on the absentee owners because at the time, 2020, prices were high and they're tired landlords. They're just over it. If you can find the ones that no longer can claim depreciation, that was right. Right now, I think that's a complete waste of time if you're making calls, because I think a lot of absentee owners realize, oh, I have an asset here, I'm not selling, unless they can find something else to recapture depreciation. So I am just going deep on foreclosures. If we can get super, super skilled, and there's psychology inherent in this, right? And we're learning, we did a test, 45-day agent success sprint within Express Offers, and we just wrapped it up last week. And it's a bit different. The absentee owners would pick up their phone. The Liz pendants, they're just, we're just another, is that bill caller, the bill collector calling?
Yeah, bill collector.
So we need to change our approach. And we've got some great tools here at EXP that we're adding on a couple of things that we can really connect and help those homeowners tap out that equity. And then, of course, one of the other problems in our challenges in our marketplace, our industry right now, is inventory. So if we can help that homeowner tap out equity and bring inventory to the marketplace whenever you're searching for the win-win, it's in my opinion, it's the most gratifying way to work.
Yeah, it's a very different landscape for sure, because when I was in REO back in 2000, really probably about 2014 is when the majority of it went away. It was insane. I sold thousands of homes during that period of time. And I laugh, and I have a story with Kelvin where when I first met him, he's like, we'll give you 2 or 3 properties to see how you do. And they handed me 90 properties in 90 days.
And yeah,
it was madness, and we figured it out. But it was very different with the asset management companies. That I'm just really curious how things are going to go this time around, because it feels like a lot of those properties are going to go out the back door before they ever hit the street. If, like, you talk about somebody who's headed to foreclosure, they're getting bombarded with investors that will snap it up long before it will ever hit foreclosure, don't you think?
How many texts do you get a day? I want to buy your house. I want a week. It's frequent. And I agree with you. A couple of things about that is that first off, that's why the agent has to be proactive to control this side and also control that side. I do know that our Fannie and Freddie are mindful of that, and they are responding. They were responding in ways where you heard the recent scratch your head. If you have a higher credit score, you get a less desirable loan product.
Yeah.
So you see that Fannie and Freddie are shifting a little bit to favor that buyer, to get that buyer into home ownership. So that's a good thing. I applaud our government for doing that. I don't think any that come through the Fannie and the Freddie portal will connect immediately to the cash buyer. That's just my opinion. Again, we real estate agents can be proactive, save that equity, help that homeowner out, provide inventory that we can sell it to a first-time home buyer or investor. Me as an investor or anybody that we can help get more investment properties. So that's my mission, Marguerite. How about you?
I think that's an extraordinary mission and is so valuable in today's market. My mission right now is to just influence and impact as many people as I can. I've spent 30 years in this industry and I feel like I have a ton of knowledge to pass on and to share with people out there who are trying to figure out a different way. I know that real estate period, even outside of EXP, has changed my life. I always laugh because I barely graduated high school. A friend of mine always called it a PhD, a public high school diploma, right? And I barely graduated by the skin of my teeth. So I don't have a college education. But my report cards always said talks too much, and that worked out for me. So,
Perfect.
but I think that we have an extraordinary opportunity to always be learning, first of all, which is something that I love. And what I love most about being in this company we're at is to be able to spend time with people like you and learn to educate yourself on what is possible. Because the number one reason people don't buy a home, in my opinion, is because they don't think they can.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as that. They don't know that what options and what opportunities are available out there to figure that resource out and find a way. Real estate has changed my life in so many ways I can't even count. Taking someone like you, single mom, and being able to out earn probably times 100 what you earned as a social worker is something that I don't really see many other industries having that opportunity. And especially for women, right? As women, it's way better than it used to be. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to not have any kind of ceiling or to be able to work those hours with your children or to have that flexibility is something that there's not a whole lot out there. Anyway, this has been a fantastic conversation with you.
I couldn't agree with you more, Marguerite. And I think it's the natural progression that God puts us through a certain path and we get mastery around it. And I'm having a blast in collaboration with other individuals to pay it forward and watch them create communities and do it for other agents. And you're absolutely right. So hats off to you and all that you're doing to pour into our community, our industry, EXP Realty. And thank you so much for having me today. It was such an absolute pleasure hanging with you.
Thank you. It was absolutely extraordinary. Are you going to be at Build or EXP Con?
I definitely EXP Con. I haven't thought too much about Build yet. Is that July or August?
July 10th to the 12th, I think.
It's possible.
Yeah. I would love to see you wherever you are for sure.
Likewise.
And I'm so grateful for you being on the show today. It was a delightful conversation and I look forward to having more great talks with you because I love being around you.
Thank you for having me, sister. Have a good day.
You bet. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people. We're available on all the great social channels. You can check us out on iTunes. Be sure to drop us a review if you have a moment. Spotify, YouTube, all those places. So be sure to follow us on all the social media and stay tuned for future great episodes with extraordinary human beings. So thanks again for being here today, Sheryl. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on Real Estate Real World.
Bye,
Make it an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there, be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.